Hi, John. I think you're muted, actually.
So John, were you talking to a bunch of nobody?
I know.
Well, I wasn't in either. I was just hanging out in the waiting room wondering what was going on.
Well, at least, yeah. I finally called San Jose and said, you might want
Yeah,
to.
sorry, you guys. We had an issue with the Zoom account, but I apologize to everybody. John, I'm gonna make you the host if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. Like this
Not a, thank you, Renee.
never happens. I hate that. Ugh.
So I'm
We're
just
all-
wondering, is there a way to blast out to people that maybe waited 15 minutes and then said, hey, this must not be going on, to get
Yeah.
them?
Yes, I'll send an email to.
Yeah, shoot a message out saying that the room's open now, because like I said, I would venture to guess, because I was getting ready. I just left it open, but I was getting ready to just turn it off myself because I didn't know if if it was going to happen or not.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm sorry about that.
I'll blast it out on the Facebook page too.
Thank you.
So how's it going, Renee? And Renee and Josh?
Like which one?
Yeah, which Renee? There's two of us now.
All you guys.
That's hilarious.
That's Laura hiding in the background.
Hi, I better see Laura.
I like the background there, Josh.
Thank you.
We're pretending to be at the beach.
Won't be pretending much longer.
There you go.
That's after he finishes all his lead generation.
Lead gen and then surf. Lead gen and then surf.
Exactly.
Surfing is my lead generation.
There you go. I like that idea.
Made a bunch of contacts so far.
Yeah, no, I was teaching down in San Clemente, and the San Clemente, and this is a while ago, obviously, because we haven't been going physically anywhere for a while, but I was teaching down in San Clemente about a year ago. And I was like, man, I don't know if I could work at this market center, because they were on like the third story of this building that overlooked the ocean. And I'm like, if I had to work in this every day, I would just go crazy. It's like I would literally, when the surf was up, I'd run out of this building and go right down into the water. And one of the people that I was talking to said, "Oh yeah, that's a common occurrence here. That everybody has their surfboards on top of their top of their cars, and when they look out the window and see stuff breaking, they're gone." And she's like, "We have to sweep sand up out of this, out of the." She's like, "It's fortunate that we have hardwood floors, because we can sweep the sand up every day."
Oh yeah.
Now, John, where are you located?
It just depends on the day. Well, it's for the last 6 months I've been located at home. I live in Ripon, California.
Ripon.
Yeah. If you blink your eye, I'll miss it. It's like it's probably about an 8-minute trip to Modesto.
Oh God.
And so my town's only like 17,000 people. And so really, really tiny, nice, quaint little town as far as that goes.
Are you from there?
I'm from Tracy. So you probably know where Tracy's at.
Uh-huh. I guess Tracy, Modesto, Turlock, all of those are kind of.
Yeah.
But you're responsible for the East Coast. You're the regional East Coast techie, right?
I'm the regional technology director for Maryland, DC.
Okay. See, I knew.
I have a long commute.
Yeah, you do. Well, now I'll tell you what, I'm beginning to love Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah. There was one day, my record, and this was very shortly after COVID started. I was supposed to, this whole COVID thing's just been ruining my travel plans, because literally I got back from the East Coast on a Friday, and that Tuesday I was supposed to leave for Hawaii. I was going to go to all 3 islands and teach in the islands.
Oh, terrible.
So it was going to be a week-long trip. And I got back the Friday, and then that weekend's when they shut everything down. So basically my trip got canceled. So I ended up doing a Zoom call training for those market centers instead, and which was okay. It wasn't the same as getting to go to Hawaii. And
Not quite.
and I didn't get to surf without a wetsuit, which is really, really tragic. But there was one day that I did a training that I started out with a morning huddle in Maryland, DC. So I was on East Coast time. And then right after that, I jumped onto a call with KW Portugal to talk about technology with them. And so then I went to a completely different continent, right? And then I came back and I did something on Central Time for KWRI, did another meeting with somebody on the East Coast, then did a session on Pacific Time locally here with somebody. And then I finished out my day teaching a class for Hawaii on Hawaiian time. So I was like in 6 different time zones in one day, and I had like no clue where I was at or what time it was by the time that day was up.
And all while not wearing pants.
Yeah, not wearing pants. Well, that's the thing is I've just recently wore pants. So since March, I've worn pants twice.
Feels weird, eh?
Yeah. So
I would almost say TMI, but that's okay.
Well, and I wore shorts, so it wasn't like I was sitting there in my underwear or anything like that. So I'm wearing shorts. For most of my days, I'm wearing shorts and not wearing any shoes.
Oh, I don't. The other day we were in an office meeting a few weeks ago, and I heard Erica walking around her house, and I heard click, 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 and I said, Erica, are you actually wearing shoes? She goes, yeah. I said, why? I never wear shoes. I haven't, the only time I wear shoes is if I'm going out. And even I have to be leaving somewhere in the car. Otherwise, right. I don't wear shoes.
Yeah.
So, well, it looks like we're not getting many other people. Hey, these are the determined souls.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll just get started. And if they, I know that you guys are recording it. So if they want to watch the video replay, they can watch the video replay. So we'll just kind of jump into this.
Okay, and then I realized too, like since Zoom kind of changed its permissions, like it's set up so that you have to admit people.
Yeah.
So I'll keep a lookout for that for sure also, but just in case.
Yeah, no worries. And so I'm going to start the screen share here in a minute. One thing I wanted to point out is the sessions for this, as you guys probably know, because this is already session number 4, are pretty old and they haven't been updated. And so some of the stuff that we go through, I'm going to kind of like skip over, but I'll let you know why I'm skipping over it. And then there's a lot of stuff that's kind of updated in terms of, hey, listen, I'm not going to have you guys go out and pull the yellow pages out to lead generate when we have command things and stuff like that we could be talking about too.
You're not going to talk about eEdge?
Probably not going to be talking about eEdge a whole lot.
Damn,
right?
I'm going to have to leave.
So yeah, so I'm going to kind of be updating this as we kind of go through the course material as well too. So let me hit my screen share here, and then we'll get into the presentation. Okay, so can everybody see the lead gen slide?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So we're going to go over lead generation 3612.3 today. This is power session number 4, leveraging a powerful contact database. And that's one of the things I'm, pretty passionate about. And that's, I think, why Elaine had asked me to do the session, is because database really has a lot to do with the technology stuff that we're working on today. So really excited to kind of go over the content and the material with you guys. So I'm going to move on to the next slide here. So in this session, we're basically going to talk a little bit about my introduction. So hopefully we talked a little bit already, so I won't spend too much time on that. We'll talk a little bit about the power of running a good database, how to build it, because ultimately that's our business, how to feed it every day to make sure that we're consistently getting information into our database on a daily basis. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to communicate with that. And I think that's one of the points where we'll really start talking a little bit about command, because that, through the leverage of smart plans, that allows us to communicate a little bit more effectively and systematically. And then we'll talk about servicing the leads. And again, smart plans, I think, can help out with that quite a bit there. And we'll talk about some final thoughts and how to kind of put everything together. Okay. So without further ado, let's kind of hop into it. So let's jump into this introduction. So again, my name is John Morris. I am the Regional Technology Director for the Maryland, DC region. Despite the fact that I live right here in Northern California with you guys, born and raised in NorCal, spent a little bit of time in my 20s, early 30s in the state of Washington. But for the most part, I've been here in Northern California all my life. And really like it. One of the things that I like to start out all my sessions with is a lot of times people say, hey, well, what's this guy teaching this class for? He's a tech guy. He doesn't really understand real estate so much. I am a broker associate. I have been in real estate for 17 years. I really kind of hate to say that because I feel like that dates me a little bit and it starts making me feel a little bit old. But this is my 17th year in real estate. And I didn't start out really as a tech guy. I've been in real estate, been a agent, been on a team, been ran a team. I've been a sales manager, been a productivity coach, tech guy, you name it, I kind of done it. And one of the things I think that makes that unique for me is that when I'm having conversations about technology and real estate with agents, I really can kind of see every angle that kind of how tech can influence each one of our roles. And so I think that gives me a pretty good perspective in being able to have conversations with agents about that. Currently, I actually belong to the Santa Cruz Market Center. Elaine and I, kind of as a joke, said it would be kind of cool for you to hang out here. And I was like, well, at some point I was thinking about maybe doing some stuff over there. And so we were like, hey, just do it. And so originally I started out in the Stockton, Tracy, and Lodi Market Center and Business Centers, which I still belong to. But then I'm also officially on the roster for the Santa Cruz Market Center too. So you guys can kind of claim ownership to me as well too. And so that's a little bit about my background. So let's kind of jump into this. I'm going to admit some people because we have some people popping in now, which is great. So if we go into the next slide here, just want to kind of go over some ground rules. I'm not going to go over this too much because I know that we're already on session 4 and this is the same slide for the first 3 sessions. And so there's not really a whole lot of reason to kind of rehash on this stuff if you guys don't need to. The only thing that I'll say is that we've changed the way that we do trainings, and what we did, 7 months ago or 8 months ago is not exactly the same thing that we're doing now. So part of the ground rules is having some, I guess, Zoom etiquette. And so just make sure that if you have, especially if you have a noisy background, we love you, we want to hear you talk, but we don't want to hear your dog barking, and we don't want to hear you ordering from the drive-through at McDonald's as well too. So just make sure that if you have stuff going on in the background, you mute yourself. However, feel free to unmute yourself and ask any question that you want and chime in as we're going through the session. Feel free to also use the chat box. As we're going through the session, I have the chat box open so that I can see what's popping up and what questions are happening through there as well. And so, this is a 2-hour class. We'll probably take a break roughly at about 45 minutes so that you guys know that we're going to be having a break pop up. And then just, I would say, have some fun, play all in, ask some questions, and we will kind of get going there. So actually, instead of 45 minutes, I'm going to just stick with the calendar so that I make sure that we hit the timelines that we want to do. So I'm going to do a quick break at about 5 minutes to 2. And so we'll go for about a half an hour, and then we'll take a quick break. I got to give something to my daughter anyway before 2 o'clock, so that gives me a chance to do that. And so we'll take about a 5-minute break prior to 2, and then we'll go from about 2 to 3. Okay. Anybody have any questions before we jump in? Awesome. All right, so we're going to pop into the session here. So let me go in and click. And so the first part of this is just kind of an exercise for you guys. And so I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to answer these questions. Hopefully you guys got the guide to the course. If you didn't, message Renee, and then Renee can email that out to you really quick, hopefully. That way you guys can follow along. So this is basically page 4 in the introduction guide. So if you look at page 4, you'll see that there is some instructions. And on the instructions, it's going to basically ask you to look at where you're at with your lead generation today. And so it's going to basically tell you, hey, what are some of the lead generation activities that you're currently doing, right? And then what are your ahas from doing those activities? So I want you to list out, in the last, say, week or so, right? Or the last 24 hours. The directions actually say list the lead generation activities you completed during the last 24 hours. So like in the last, let's just say the last week, I'm going to give you guys a little bit more extra time because maybe some of you guys didn't lead generate in the last 24 hours. I'm not going to hold any judgment here. But I want you guys to take a look and think about this last week. What lead gen activities did you do? What did you learn from doing those lead gen activities? What were some of the challenges that you faced in doing that? Were you unmotivated? Did your phone not work? Were you doing some online stuff and then the internet went down? So what were some of the challenges that you had? And then based on what you did, what you learned, what some of your challenges were, what are some things that you might do differently? And let's not say the next 24 hours, let's just say next week. What are you going to do differently next week based off of your experiences this week? So I don't know if we need a whole 10 minutes to kind of write these things down. So what I'm going to tell you is this. Let's take about 5 minutes to answer those 4 questions in your guide, or if you don't have the guide, if you can just answer those 4 questions that are on the PowerPoint there and write those down. Let's take about 5 minutes to get those things on paper. And then we'll spend about 5 minutes kind of discussing kind of where you're at and what some of the things that you guys came up with.
Hey, John,
So,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I actually, in the chat box, I put the PowerPoint and the workbook. So if you guys need it, check the chat box and download it.
Okay, awesome. All
Thank
right, so we are at basically 1:30, so I want to give you guys until about 1:35 to answer those 4 questions, and then we'll spend about 5 minutes discussing those questions. So you guys can start working on that right now. And then I'm going to take a quick break during the 5 minutes here, and then I'll be right back. Okay, we got about 2 minutes left, and so kind of 2-minute warning, and then we will kind of have a little discussion based on some of the questions here. All right, so we're going to kind of resume here. So the exercise again asked you kind of where you're at today and where you think you might want to go in the future. So just a quick, again, you can if you're shy, you can use the chat box. If you're not shy, you can unmute yourself. But what were some of the lead generation activities that you guys did over the last this past week? I think we got some really shy people. You guys aren't getting any business if you're not lead gen.
Okay. Well, we'll go with what we're supposed to do.
Okay.
And Renee will like this. But we just changed our notes. We just moved from Montana, so we utilized changing numbers over as a chance to reconnect with a lot of people. So doing a lot of stuff through text that I'm supposed to be calling expireds, and Laura's connecting with her database here. We kind of had a rough week, so that motivation got derailed pretty hard, and we've bounced back. And the difficult part of the activities was kind of like the monkey mind mindset, as well as just really getting into the routine of the time blocking and following the schedule. And so moving forward next week, and actually in the next 24 hours into next week, being very purposeful about how the schedule that we've set and honoring and protecting that time block, especially for the lead generation.
Yeah, I know that's one of the things that I know that he's one of the favorites of Santa Cruz too, is Michael Putnam, right? Who is with UHG. I know he teaches a lot of classes with you guys. And that was one of his things that he always says is that when he was really more in production, was like super diligent about protecting his time, to the point of where apparently he got into a little bit of trouble because his wife went into labor and she was afraid to call him because she knew how much he was protecting his lead generation time.
Oh my God. Oh,
so not saying that you need to go to that extreme, but you need to make sure that you're not. It's really easy in this business because the lead generation is not usually the funnest or the most fun thing that we do, and a lot of us use any excuse that we can get. Hey, I got to set up an appointment for a home inspection, and we got to do it during my lead gen time because that's the only time that they could do it. That's not really necessarily true either, right? So we need to make sure that we're not, and if we interrupt our lead gen time, we got to replace, we can't basically just lose it. We got to replace it. So, hey, if something does come up and we have to go on an inspection, because that's the only time that this can happen, great, but you're going to be spending time that you were supposed to do lead gen someplace else in the day. Right. So in other words, hey, I lead gen from 9 to 12. Oh, I got to do this inspection at 11 o'clock. So I missed that hour. Well, you got to find another hour somewhere in the day to get that one that you missed. Right?
John, just so you know, one of the things that we're going to do, the reason they refer to Renee is that I'm actually the productivity coach for Santa Cruz and various and other locations. And one of the things that I committed that we were going to start on October is that we have script practice 8:30 every morning, which we've had for the last forever.
Since
anyway, yeah. So, and then after that, we're going to stay online and we're going to lead generate together.
So on a Zoom call, you guys are going to be lead generating on Zoom, huh? I
Yep.
like that.
Yep, that's what we're going to be starting. So if anyone wants to play with us, anyway, but that's a way to make sure, and that keeps me accountable too, because I'm still in production and I still need to do it too, because anyway.
I like it.
I like it.
Yeah, and so and that is really true. That's one of the challenges there is that we do get into situations a lot of times where we, again, I think having that lack of accountability, especially in a virtual environment where we're not seeing people on a daily basis, we start to kind of lose some of that a little bit. And I really like that idea of basically getting everybody on the Zoom, and then it's like, oh, okay, hey, listen, even though we might mute ourselves, we can all
Please.
see, you know, Renee can see that John doesn't have a phone in his hand. And so, hey, I'm going to call John out after I get off my call and say, get on a dang phone, right? So I really like that idea. That's great, right? And then we can celebrate our wins on there as well, too, because, you know, I could be on here and maybe I didn't want to do it, but I know Renee's going to get on my case if I'm not on this call. And then I make some calls and I get a $2 million appointment, right? Then that's fun to be able to share with the group, too, right? Anybody else have anything they want to share with what they kind of thought of?
I'm just now putting together, this is Lee, John. I'm just now putting together from my Prospect Now file. I'm putting together a group of email farms that everybody's supposedly there's about a 60% confidence on the telephones and about 80% confidence on the email farms. So I'm putting together the last of the 3 farms so I can initiate those as I go through the KW process.
Okay, awesome.
I think it's going to be really good, but it's been a monumental task to get it to the point where I have deliverables tomorrow. So
Yeah.
I'm going to start this process tomorrow. And I appreciate everybody talking about time blocking, because I try to do this on the fly. It just doesn't work. I used to do it at different hours through the day. And realistically, you guys have the best comment. Just time block it and just do it, you know.
Right.
So frankly, if I was married and my wife was going into labor and she had second thoughts about calling me, I don't know. I think I would be in the doghouse for a long time.
No, I get that. And I really, you know, Josh didn't mention this, but I really liked his lead generation activity of surfing too, right? So going out there and just networking with people. Hey, I'm going to surf every day for 3 hours a day, and that's how I'm going to build my business. I love that.
And he could put a real estate sign on his board.
There you go.
This board sells real estate.
Well, I
Love
like that.
Tax write-off.
There
Yeah.
you go. I'm going to surf. I'm going to build my business, and surfing is going to give me a tax write-off. That sign me up. Right?
I'm sure somewhere in the KW store there's a surfboard, and if there isn't, they should consider it.
Well,
Yeah.
and if there isn't, I know people that can do that for you. So
Or for the Santa Cruz office, that'd be hysterical.
yeah,
I'll just take the one off the front desk.
there you go. All right. So again, while you're here, we've been talking about the different processes. We're basically kind of on step 4, leveraging your database. You guys have gone over marketing. Have gone over prospecting, validity and positioning, and you've went over the introduction. You guys still have a few more to go. So just kind of wanted to show you that we're fairly close to being about halfway through the session here. I think this is probably, everybody's going to say there's equal importance to a lot of this stuff. I think what we're going to be talking about here is probably the most important part. And if you talk to Gary Keller, everything's about database, leveraging your database, feeding your database, growing your database, because ultimately that's your business. So I'm really excited to be able to do what I consider to be the most important one of these different components. All right. So one of the things I want to ask you guys, and I'm going to just, whatever your responses are, I'm going to put those into, actually, rather than having me write, right? One of the things I always like to do when I'm doing classes, I want to try to make sure I hit the things that you guys feel are important to you. And so what I'd like you guys to do right now is just in the chat box, if you can, give me 1 or 2 things that you expect from the class and that you'd like to learn from this class that will make it a good experience. So that way I could try to make sure that we hit all the things that are going to be what's going to be important to you. So if you could just I'll give you guys 1 minute. So just rapid round, 1 minute. What's going to make this a really great training experience for you? If you could type that in the chat box, that'd be great. So I see sending newsletters. Oh, that was on the last question. Setting up reminders of when to contact our database. That's a good one. Thanks, Renee. Awesome. So I know we got 8 people on this call other than me, and then now we got 2. Okay, the importance of time blocking. I like that one too. What else, guys? Or is everybody on this call that doesn't have their camera on secretly doing something else? I know Renee's not, so I wasn't calling you out. All right, so if I cover just the importance of time blocking and the importance of being organized and basically setting up reminders of when to contact our database, then we'll look at this as being a great training. So I know that all of these different things that are in the class do cover a lot of that stuff. So that's great. Josh, what do you now know that you wish you knew when you started regarding database? What I wish I would have done when I first started this is just make sure that you enter stuff, because I didn't start out with Keller Williams, right? And I wish that I would have, because ultimately they've developed a system here that allows you to build as big a business as you want. And I knew a database was important when I first got started, but not how to really make it work for me the way that I wanted to. And this class, I think, will shed some light on that, which is really great. All right. So the power of a database. So it says a record of your business successes. Truth, the heart of your business is your database, and the heartbeat of your business is your regular contact with your database. So some things that you want to make sure that you have inside of your database. And one of the things that I think is really cool about this is this course was written a while ago. And I said before some of you guys got on the call that I'm going to update this on the fly as we go, because I know that there's a lot of new information that's out there. But what's really cool about this is to see how Command is really just an extension of the MREA, because a lot of this stuff kind of comes into play. So here are some things that you're doing with your database. You're recording contact information from the leads that you get, which is why we have a health score inside of Command to let you know how much information you really have and what you should have, right? It gives you, Command gives you the ability to track your interactions with those people so that you know what was said. And then you can assign them to appropriate marketing plans or drip campaigns or smart plans, so through those interactions that you have. So it's really, really important to make sure that we're utilizing our database, because I know sometimes people get a little bit lazy and it's a little bit tough to go and enter that stuff in. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're putting all that information in, because it's going to ultimately help us with our business and know what to say and when to say it. Okay. So, and here's one thing that I think that's really important to keep in mind, because a lot of times I'll hear, some people who might be a little bit older in real estate that are getting close to retiring, and hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't really care about the technology so much anymore, because by the time all this stuff, this technology mumbo jumbo is really important, I'm going to be out of the business. So I don't really care. But think about this. Look at that truth. It says, when you hear of doctors or lawyers selling their practice, what are they really selling? They're not selling the equipment and the office space and the tools. They're selling their client. They're selling their client base, right? They're selling their book of business to people. And I think that's one of the big mistakes some people who are maybe thinking about getting out of the business fairly soon are making, is that if I'm not really continuing to service my people the way that they need to be serviced, in 2 or 3 years when I'm ready to get out of this business, what's my business going to be worth, especially if I want to sell it, right? And then what if I want to get out and replace myself? So maybe I don't want to sell it, but I want to turn it over to my kid. Or I want to find somebody to replace me on the team. I'll still be the team owner, but I'm going to go surf all day long, and I'm going to pay somebody to be the leader. If I have aspirations of doing either of those things, I'm going to want to make sure that I really continue to build on that database, continue to learn the technology tools that are going to be needed to make sure that that database runs more healthy, so that the value when it comes time for me to step out, either to just as a more of a distant investor or as selling it, that database is still worth something, right? Does that make sense? I'm taking silence as a yes. If you don't say anything, you're
It
agreeing
is,
with me.
it is, it is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So some database tools. This is not my slide. Like I said, this slide is really, really old. So I am not advocating anything on this particular slide itself. So just scratch the 3x5 index cards out. We don't use index cards anymore.
What's an electronic spreadsheet?
Electronic spreadsheet, they're referring to like Google Sheets or Excel. So we don't want to use that either, right? Personal information manager, I'm not even sure exactly what that is. And database management system, contact management system, that's really what Command does, right? And even if you're not using Command, you have to have some sort of digital system or tool so that you can then automate a lot of the workflow that you need to do. Because if I have it on, even if I have it on a spreadsheet, I got your information on a spreadsheet, great. It's going to take me more time to synthesize, find data, be able to put you on different marketing pieces and things like that. So our database tools, what I'd really like you guys to do is cross out all 1 through 5 and then just put Command in big letters on your guide, right? Because that's really the best database tool out there. Or if you're not using Command, at least some CRM. So this slide needs to go. So question, what's the best type of database tool to use? And
The one you'll use.
The one that you're going to use, right? And that's like when I got into this business. And again, man, I hate to say 17 years, but I've been in the business 17 years. When I got into the business, I asked a mentor, an early mentor, hey, what's the best way to lead generate, right? And I was praying to God that he didn't tell me door knocking because I can't stand door knocking, right? And so basically what my mentor had said is, well, that just depends on you. What are you going to do consistently on a daily basis? That's going to be the best lead generation model, right? Because ultimately, if you're not consistently doing something, you're not going to use it. And then if you're not going to use it, you're not going to have the results that you want from it. And so I think the database thing's kind of really the same thing is I keep preaching Command. But if you're not going to use it, right,
Yeah, it goes
a 3x5 index card's still going to be better than nothing, right? And so ultimately, the answer to this, my preferred answer is Command or at least some other CRM. But ultimately, if you're not going to use any of those things, find something that you will use that you can be consistent with. Obey the laws. Here are the laws of database building. So basically, there's 4 things that you just need to remember. Okay. And the 4 things are build your database. So you got to start, even if it's only 20 leads or 20 people that are in your database, that's fine. Okay. But you got to build it. So commit to that. You need to feed it every day. So you need to grow it because ultimately if you only have 20, that's fantastic. But if you only have 20 and that's all you're ever going to have, it's going to be pretty tough because they say the average person moves every 7 years. And if you're trying to get a transaction off of everybody in your database, 3 transactions a year might not give you the income that you want to get, right? So make sure that you start it, you feed it every day, you communicate with it in a systematic way because ultimately you need to make sure that you're communicating with those people. And a quick quiz time here. Too, right? And Renee, you can't answer because I know you know the answer to this. How many times are we supposed to communicate with a consumer in a year?
36.
All right, Renee, you're doing your job, right? So 36 times a year. I'll tell you right now, I have a lot of conversations with agents all over the country, and I have a lot of conversations with really top agents. And I talk to guys that are doing, I have one person in my region that's doing over 1,000 transactions a year.
Holy
And
How big of a staff does he have?
he's got teams in like 7 different
got people.
states.
Yeah, he's got
He's
lots
got
of
teams
people.
in 7 different states. So he does about 2,500 transactions a year. But when I talk to even top people and I ask them how many times you communicate with your past clients in a given year, the average, take a guess what the average response is. What do you guys think?
7.
The average typically the number I hear from people is they think they're doing a pretty good job. They follow up with their people 4 times a year.
Oh my God.
Right.
Wow.
And that is, we know that it's 36. because ultimately what we're really trying to do with our database is make sure that we're building mind share. And because we know this as a stat, right? That the average consumer, doesn't matter what product it is, the average consumer can name 2 products in any given space. So if I was to sit there and tell me the name of 2 sodas or 2 toothpaste brands, the average consumer would be able to only tell me 2. Same thing applies for real estate. So if we can systematically communicate with those people 36 times in a given year, they're going to know that we're one of those 2. And then we also know that 70% of the time, the average person only interviews 1 agent, and that 1 agent gets the job. So if I could be one of the 2 that they're thinking of, and if I can get in there first, I have a really high probability of getting that person as my client. That make sense? Awesome. And then when the leads do come our way, we need to have a way to service those people. And the way that we're going to service them is having their information in the database so that we know the communications that we've had with these people, the interactions that we've had with these people, what they want, what they don't want. And, you know, like I said, Command really helps us with a lot of that stuff. All right. So how do you build a database? You stand on a street corner with a sign, waving it, saying, give me your contact information. Well, I guess you could do that. Anything's better than nothing. And again, if you're following along, we're on page 11 in the book, right? But basically what we're looking at is this. It's not just the business of servicing clients. It's easy to service clients. And that's where I think a lot of people get screwed up when they come into this business, is when they come into this business, they really think along the lines, they watch the TV shows. Like, hey, I'm watching this, you know, House Hunters, or I'm watching Selling LA, and I'm looking at this guy make a $200,000 commission selling these $1 million homes, and that looks like a whole lot of fun. But the business isn't really servicing the business. We're in the business of finding clients. So it's really lead generation. And lead generation happens when we really are systematically hitting our database. And so the truth they list on this page is the size of your real estate business over time will be in a direct proportion to the size and quality of your database. You have good leads in there, and if you're working that database, you're going to have a good quality business, and it's going to be substantial. If you don't have a lot of people in there and you're not working them very well, then you're not going to get a lot out of it, right? And we know that it's going to be much easier, and it's just like any brand. It's much easier to do business with people that are already there than to find new people, and it's going to be cheaper. And so get the people in your database and work those people well. So where do contacts come from? On this slide, it basically just shows some different things that can kind of feed into your database pool, right? So we're going to call this lake database, right? So you have some things like responses to mailers, if you do mailers, your geographic farms, responses to advertising that you do, web searches, stealth sites, that's an older term, so we'll just use single property websites or landing pages. IVR is not really a thing so much anymore. Your own website, those are all some good spots. Community involvement and networking and client parties and yard signs, seminar attendees, those are all great. Demographic farms, FSBOs, withdrawns, expireds, personal network, lead generating, door knocking, just random conversations, open houses are all good. Those are all great. Those can all feed in there too. And then, you know, some of the stuff that's a little bit more impactful, I think, business referrals, personal referrals, business network, your friends, family members, referrals from other agents, past clients. That little core up at the top here is basically, I think, where a bulk of our business is going to come from if we work it right, right? And which is just kind of like the 80-20 rule, is that we know that for most people, 80% of our business is going to come from 20% of our lead sources. And so if we focus in on the stuff that really works well for us, and then we just need to double down on those things and do more of that. So kind of find your sources. If you're just getting started and you're newer in the business, you can kind of play around with some of these things. Some of them are free. Some of them have a cost to it. And just make sure that you're putting effort into those areas and give it some time to work too. Because that's one of the things too, just like Facebook ads, right? If we're running, everybody's talking about Facebook ads right now because we can get them for so cheap. I run Facebook ads, I get some leads, I get all excited, I think this is great, and then I call them all, and then nobody wants to do anything, and I say, these are all crap. This Facebook thing's garbage, and it doesn't work. Well, one of the things you got to pay attention to is that, especially with online lead generation, the conversion period on those people is usually somewhere between 8 to 12 months. So it's a longer term play. And so you're not going to get immediate results a lot of times from those online leads. But if you put them into your database and you service them and you continually follow up with them, where the magic really starts happening is when you start getting to be 8, 9, 10, 12 months out, right? And to give you a good example, I have an agent in my region in Maryland that basically he started in doing the Facebook lead gen through Command over a year ago. And he said first couple months, didn't get a whole lot, was struggling, but he kept at it and he kept at it and he kept at it. And then he said some magic really started happening right around 9 months as he started closing transactions from the early leads that he got. And then now what basically where he's at over a little over a year later is he's spending $30 a week, so 120 a month. And that 120 a month, after doing this consistently without fail for a year, he's closing 2 transactions from that $120 investment every single month, like clockwork now. And so average commission for him is, I think, $10,000. And so he's making a $120 investment to make 10 grand, to make 20 grand, right? Which
John,
is
it's all about momentum. You know, once you get the momentum started, it doesn't take too much to keep the ship going.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the next slide, we're right at about 2 o'clock. Like I said, it's a 2-hour class. I don't want you to sit in your seats for 2 hours without being able to stretch out a little bit. So let's just take a quick 5-minute break because I know we started it a little bit late and I want to make sure we try to get out of here on time as much as possible. So let's just take a quick 5, use the restroom, grab something to drink, stretch out, and then we'll come back and we'll finish this up.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
that was, what were you, I'm sorry, I joined a little late, but you were speaking about an investment in Command?
I don't know about an investment because
You said
Command doesn't cost
it
anything.
was $30 to $120 a month.
Basically an agent that I know is spending $30 a week running Facebook ads inside of Command.
Oh, okay, Facebook ads. Okay,
Yep.
got it. Through Command?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, fabulous. Okay, thank you. See you in 5.
All right. All right.
MSIBILIA@kw.com. Subject.
Okay, it's 2:05. We're going to get started up again here. One of the great things I like about teaching on Pacific time where I live is I can look down at my computer and that's really the time that it is. Because I'm always doing stuff in different time zones and I'm trying to figure out in my head, what actual time is it where I'm talking to the people at? So on the next page in your guide here, we're going to talk about building a database, haven't mets and mets. And so this is page 13 if you're following along in your guide. And the difference between really a haven't met and a met is simply this. I haven't met means I have your information, kinda, but I maybe haven't talked to you yet. We haven't developed a relationship. A met could then be somebody that really I've had communication with. And we've kind of changed this terminology a little bit. So like in command, we don't refer to it as haven't mets and mets. We refer to it as contacts and we refer to it as leads. So a lead is a haven't met. It's somebody that maybe you came to my open house, 20 people were in there. I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but I got your information, right? So now you're a lead or a haven't met. A met, on the other hand, is you came into the open house. We talked for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I really got to find out what you're looking for. And now I can have a little bit smarter discussions with you on the things that you're going to want, right? So it's typically the haven't mets we consider the general public or maybe a target farm, for example. Mets are people that are in our network that we know, allied resources like mortgage people that we know, title company people that we know. Advocates are our friends or people that basically would recommend us, maybe not all the time, maybe we're not top of mind with them all the time. Core advocates, these are people that under any circumstance, when they hear that one of their friends or family members are looking to do real estate, they're going to refer you, right? So what we really want to try to do is we want to try to meet as many people as we can and then work them as close as possible to being a core advocate as we can, okay? So these are kind of some of the different categories. And we're going to go into, not me here today, but we're going to go into the mets and haven't mets a lot in the Power Session 5, which will be the next one. I'm not sure who the instructor is for that one, but they'll be covering pretty in depth and in detail the difference between a haven't met and a met.
That'll be with Maggie Barr, by the way.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
So the types of business mets and haven't mets bring to you. So just so that you guys kind of get an idea, typically there's 3 types of business we have. Repeat business, we get somebody that's been a past client and they are a client again. We have a referral business, and this could be from, past clients. It could be from our friends and family, and it really can also be from strangers because technically it's showing here on this guide, you can get a referral from a haven't met, and I'll really explain that in a little bit. And then new business could be from people we know and people we don't know. So how this kind of plays out, right? A met can give us repeat business because that could be a past client and they're going to do business with us again. A past client or a friend or a family member that knows us really well, even if they haven't used us before, can refer us to people. And then, hey, I'm meeting Josh today for the first time. If he wasn't an agent, right? He's somebody that maybe we didn't do a deal with, but we develop a good relationship, and then he meets somebody out there surfing and he says, hey, I got a great agent, John, for you. And so a met can be a source of new business as well, not just repeat and referrals, okay? So this gives you, this is why mets are really valuable because they can give you all 3. Haven't mets not quite as much because you're going to typically get new business from somebody you haven't met before. You can also get some referrals. Because ultimately haven't met, although it's not quite as likely, is that if I haven't really met you, but I've been marketing to you, Josh responds to one of my Facebook ads. And I've been marketing to Josh, marketing to Josh, marketing to Josh, marketing to Josh. He's not responding to any of my marketing, but he's getting my regular information because I've been doing a great job of following up. He decides he doesn't want to do any business because maybe he just can't. I decided I don't want to sell my house now, or I don't want to buy a house. I'm just going to remodel the house that I do have, and I'm going to stay here. But then his friend basically says, hey, I'm looking at selling my house. Do you know anybody? Well, hey, I haven't used it. And then Josh says, hey, I haven't used this guy before, but he's been like on it. He's like done a great job following up with me, super responsive as far as that goes. So I would give this guy a call. So technically you can, if you're doing a good job following up with people, you can get referrals from people you don't even know, which is really great too. Okay. All right. So how large should your database be? And that's, people always want to ask a question, what does it look like in terms of, how big should my database be? And if you go to page 15 on your guide, this is going to kind of give you an idea of how big your database should be, right? So basically for METs, we say that there's a 12-2 conversion rate, meaning that for every 12 people that I know that are a MET, if I'm working with them and I'm consistently following up with them and I'm reaching out to them 36 times, maybe not in year one, and this is why we got to have longevity in this business, right? Is that if I do what I'm supposed to do every year for 5 years, roughly 5 years is where the magic really starts to happen. Because now I should start to see those conversion ratios actually click. So if I've been doing this consistently for 5 years, after 5 years, for every 12 people that I have in my database, I should expect 2 pieces of business from that, right? So basically 6 to 1. So if I have 6 people in my database, I get 1 transaction, right? If I have 12 people, I get 2. If I have, if I have 60 people, I get 10, right? And then the conversion ratio on the other hand for an unmet is 50 to 1. And so that's why it's harder sometimes to get new business or to constantly be needing to get new business, because I need to have a lot more people. And it doesn't show it on the slide here, but if you're following along in the guide, right? The guide kind of shows you what those numbers look like. If I wanted to have 320 sales a year, so I wanted to do 320 transaction sites, based on the information here, I would need to have about 1,920 contacts in my database. And contacts, I mean not leads, but people I know and people that I have been systematically following up with 36 times a year for about 5 years. If I knew nobody and I was just trying to get that many transactions from scratch, and I was having to build from scratch, I would need about 16,000 people on my database to be able to get that same number. And then option 3 kind of shows if I wanted to split that up and kind of make it equal, if I wanted about half of those transactions to come from my database, I'd need about 960. And then for haven't mets, I'd need about 8,000. I think the point of the matter here is that if you want to really be able to get consistent business without having to constantly lead generate and constantly bringing new people in, the way to do it is through building out your database. So hopefully that's what you got from this slide. So it says, how large should your database be? Follow the model from the KW course. Make 10 new contacts each day and enter into your database. So if you guys have taken Ignite, I'm going to give you a magic number here, right? If you've taken Ignite, they teach you in Ignite to do the daily 10-4. And part of the daily 10-4 is to add 10 new contacts every day into your database. If you do that for 200 working days in a year, that's going to give you 2,000 people in your database. And then once you got the 2,000 people in your database, right, you can then, after about 5 years, start to expect some of the numbers that we're talking about here. So I had somebody in a private message ask me where are the study sheets. If you don't have the guide, I know Renee posted it early in the chat, so I'm not sure if Renee's still on here, but if you can repost that, then she'll get you out the sheets. Does this all make sense to you guys? Okay, cool. All right. So again, I think you can see the importance of building out that database. So classifying your METs and haven't METs. We already talked about this just a little bit, but we always want to, real estate, just like any other business, is relationship building. And what we want to do is we want to start moving people to become our core advocates. And not everybody's going to get there, but the more people we start to get into that spot. So if those 2,000 people, what we're really going to find is if we get 2,000 people into our database, roughly out of those 2,000, 40 of them, okay, because we're looking at 20%, 40 of them are going to give us 80% of our business, right? Because they're going to be people that use us. They use us multiple times. They refer us. They give us more business. And so we're going to have to, one, not only build our database out, but then start to recognize, okay, who's just kind of part of the general public, who's kind of some leads that I got, who are some of the other people that I'm working with in my farm that I'm trying to get. Okay, great. Now, who are the people who are my contacts that I'm consistently working? And you can see where these colors change, right? And then who are the people who are my allied resources that I can get business from? Who are the people who are really strong with me? And then who are the people I can really focus on to provide them extra value because they're going to provide me more business, okay? So that's what you need to also be doing as you're maybe building out your database, is identifying, and this could be how you tag your people using command. Okay, hey, this is a general lead. Hey, this is a farm lead. Hey, this is somebody that's in my network. This is an allied resource. This is an advocate. Hey, this is one of my core people. Because what I want to do is my database that on a 36 touch, it basically tells us we should do a quarterly call to each one of our people. And so I want to quarterly call everybody. My core advocates, I'm going to probably call monthly rather than quarterly, because those are the people that I really need to make sure that I maintain good relationship with, because they're the people that are referring me business. So I'm not going to treat everybody in my database the same. The closer you get to that inner circle, the more touches that you're going to get. So while everybody gets a 36 touch, these people could be, I mean, literally those people could be 100 touches, right? Depending on what you want to do. All right, so building your METs in your database, some sources for building your MET database. So if I want to build out METs right away, okay, I'm going to look at, hey, who's my family? And again, this is page 17, so you don't need to write this notes down if you have this on, if you have the guide. So family, friends, neighbors, people that live, near my home, people that, go to my school, go to my kids' school, people that I do business with. So, my hair person, my doctor, things like that. People that in sports and hobbies, right? I know that Josh talked about surfing, and while it seems funny in a joke, that's a really great source to be able to get business, is people that you hang out with and have fun with, right? Former employers, coworkers, suppliers, customers, people from past jobs are great, right? And then business organizations that you guys do as well too. Okay, those are all really great sources to get people that we already know into our database. And what we want to do with those people is we want to basically, especially if we're just getting into real estate, we want to put them on what we call like an 8x8. So I'm going to reach out to you one time every week for 8 straight weeks, just to let you know that I'm in this business now and this is what I do. That way it kind of starts to cement that relationship. Then after the 8x8 is over, now I'm going to put that person onto a 36 touch. So I'm going to reach out to you one time every week for 8 straight weeks. Then after that, I'm going to reach out to you roughly 3 times a month. Okay. And then we're going to, like I said, we're going to talk a lot more about that in the next session on working METs and how to do those a little bit better, right? All right. So exercise. So we're going to take a quick little exercise. Who knows you already, right? So think about this, and I want you to write this down, and you can follow along in your guides if you have the guides there, okay? But I'm going to basically kind of lead you through an exercise of a list of people that you might be able to know, okay? So the directions here say, listen as the instructor leads you through an exercise to jog your memory about the people that you already know that you may not have thought of. Use the blank lines below to make a list of the people who come to mind, okay? So I'm going to read through kind of a list here, right? And we're going to talk about some of the people that you might be able to list out, okay? All right, so, and it's not going to be a huge list as far as that goes. So grab a piece of paper, and then as we go through this, then you guys can think about that, right? Oops, I hit one too many. All right. So, all right, think about this, and we'll just go through each one of the 10 lines. So I'm going to give you like 10 different occupations. Think about somebody that you know in that occupation that you might be able to add into your database, okay? So first occupation, doctor. think about who is a doctor or doctors that you have that's in your database that you can utilize or put into that spot there that you can reach out to and ask to be part of your network.
Veterinary doctors.
Could be any doctor. I just said doctor, so write down any doctor that you can think of the name of. And then you can write down more than one person for when I say that occupation, right? So second one, so first occupation was doctor. Second occupation, let's say mechanic, right? And so the mechanic could be a mechanic at a car dealership. Who works on your cars when you need to get your car serviced? Do you have a favorite name there? And if you don't, that's okay, right? I'm just kind of trying to jog your memory and give you some ideas on people that you guys can reach out to, okay? Third occupation is, let's say, attorney, right? Who is an attorney or a lawyer that you know that you can put into your database? And part of the reason why, as you're thinking of that, part of the reason why we're listing different occupations is it's really great to have allied resources in different areas, because then you can refer those guys business too and develop a referral relationship. Okay, fourth occupation that we're going to put down is restaurant owner. What's your favorite restaurant? And hopefully you know the name of the person who owns that, because if I frequent a place, I want to know the names of the people who own those restaurants, because I want to let them know how much I like what they do. All right. The fifth one, I'm going to just say an ex-coworker. So a lot of us didn't start out in real estate. A lot of us came from a different industry. And what industry were you in before? And who's somebody there that you really connected with that should be in your database as well? A really good allied resource to have, and I'll put in there, and hopefully as a real estate agent, you have a guy like that already, but who's a good handyman, right? And handymen are great sources for referrals, right? And gardeners for that matter. Because typically if I want to sell my house, one of the first people I call, probably even before a real estate agent, is a handyman to make some repairs on my house, or a gardener to make some repairs on my house so that I can get it ready to show. And so those guys are, if you develop good relationships with them, those guys are a pretty good source or stream of people that you can reach out to and leverage to get business. So we'll go into number 7 now. Number 7, let's just say, this is a pretty easy one too that you should have already. Who's your favorite lender? Who's your favorite lender? And these are great sources for potential transactions. And we'll just stick with the real estate theme. So for number 8, who's a title rep that you like to use? And sometimes people are like, hey, why do I put a title rep? Why do I put a mortgage person in? These people probably know hundreds of real estate agents. And why are they going to kind of potentially work with me? Maybe they never work with you. I have lots of people that are in my allied resources that have never actually done a transaction themselves with me, because maybe they just have a friend or family member or somebody that they have a longer relationship with me than I do with them. But those people do refer me business because ultimately, if I'm feeding them business, they should be feeding me back business as well too. Okay. So let's go to the last 3 here. So let's just say we talked about title rep, we talked about mortgage person. What about a pool guy? We're in California. We know a lot of people have pools. What's a pool guy that we could reach out to and have in our database? And then for number 9, some of us might be older and not have that so much anymore, but I'm going to put it, and we probably all know somebody that is. Who's a teacher that we know, right? We have kids, we have grandkids, we might know the names of some teachers. If we don't have grandkids or kids, we might still know a teacher that knows a whole lot of people, right? And for the last one, and I think this one's probably one of the best ones because they know a ton of people, right? Is who do we know that cuts hair that we could put into our database and make sure that we're systematically dripping on that person? Because everybody gets haircuts, at least pre-COVID they do, right? But everybody gets haircuts. They come across a lot of people, and people, they spend a half an hour at least with guys with short hair. They spend at least a half an hour or more talking to that individual, and they know a whole lot about what's going on in people's lives, especially if you're getting a haircut monthly, than probably almost anybody else does, right? And so if they say, hey, you know, this is going to be maybe the last 1 or 2 times that I visit you because we're thinking about moving and we're getting our house, we want to get our house ready for sale. Then it would be really great if that hairstylist said, oh, who are you going to list with? Oh, we don't have anybody yet. We got to find somebody. Oh, well, I got a really great person that I could recommend if you'd like, right? So that would be a really good person to have there as well, too. And then what I would do is just kind of keep thinking about people that come to mind as you're going through this list, and you can kind of keep adding those people in. So on the next slide, we talked about this a little bit, building your haven't met database. There's a couple ways that you can build your haven't met database either. So we talked about mets. Some ways that you can build out your haven't mets. You can use title companies to give you lists of people that are in neighborhoods if I want to do a farm, right? And they're great resources. And then I got third-party vendors, and there could be some costs associated or not associated with that. So, I mean, theoretically, I could use somebody like Zillow or one of those, you know, Boomtown or Sync and do some lead acquisition that way. Building your haven't met database, you can do a great job with that, doing open houses, because you're bringing in people that you haven't met. And so that's one of the ways that I really liked to build my stuff out. With Command now, you have the ability to run Facebook ads yourself and for a pretty relatively cheap cost. So those are great ways to bring haven't mets in. And one of the things I want to make sure that you guys know too is that if you didn't go to Mega Camp a couple weeks ago, one of the things they talked about as we're doing our marketing and we're really trying to reach out to both people that we know and that we don't know, Google basically told us that there's 15 million people doing home searches monthly. But they've changed the way what they're searching for. The search terms that these 15 million people are using are things like virtual tour, virtual home search, 3D home tours, remote home tours. So we need to make sure that in our marketing, whether it's offline or online, we're letting people know that we have virtual options available for them, because there's a lot of people that want to stay safe in this environment and they don't really feel comfortable right now going out there into the world until they know that they're going to be safe. So it's going to be really important for you guys, both with your mets and your unmets, when you're creating your marketing pieces, to let them know that you can take care of them in a virtual environment as well as the physical world too. Okay. And so super important to make sure that you guys are doing that. All right, and then again, you want to make sure that you're putting your stuff in your database. One of the really cool things that's down here on this page, on page 19, says some agents do maintain their own haven't met database, typically for a small farm. Printing marketing materials, all that stuff is fine, but when you start getting a lot of people in there, if you don't have a good database or system, and this is where kind of like I said, note cards start to fall apart, unfortunately, right? In Command, I can manage thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Prior to Command, when this course was built and people were using spreadsheets and note cards, not very manageable. So that's just another reason to kind of digitize your database as well too. Okay. All right. Feed it every day. So in this section, we're going to talk about how to kind of grow it. So we talked about what you need to do to build it. We talked about the types of people that you could put in there. We talked a little bit about, you know, the haven't mets and the mets. So let's talk about what you need to do to kind of like feed it and grow it, right? So in Ignite, we talked about making 10 new contacts every day. It's important. Hey, I need to make 10 new contacts every day. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be every day. I mean, it's good if you can, but hey, if my gig is open houses and I want to make sure that I'm meeting a lot of people at my open houses, maybe I go for it. And every Saturday, every Sunday, I'm out there doing 3 open houses each one of those days. If I'm doing 6 open houses in 2 days and I'm getting 10 leads on each one of those open houses, that's 60 contacts. So I can hit 60 if I can hit 60 contacts in 2 days, I don't need to necessarily do the daily 10-4. The point is you want to get 40 new, you want to basically get 50 new contacts a week, right? And then you want to enter 10 people into your database. So I meet 10 new people. I put 10 new people into my database. I write 10 notes to those people to follow up with them. And then I preview 10 homes a week. And so basically what you do is if you do this daily 10-4, like I said, there's 200 working days in a year. In 1 day, or excuse me, 1 year, you can go from not having anybody in your database to having 2,000 people in your database. And then within 5 years, that database could be yielding you a basically 1 per 6, right? So if we basically say, I'm going to get 1 transaction off of every 6 people, 2,000 divided by 6, now you're looking at about 320 transactions, like what we talked about, right? So make sure that you're growing your database. And I think the goal, a good goal is get 2,000 legitimate, really good people in your database. Spend a year making sure that you're really building that out, and then spend the next 4 years making sure that you're systematically following up with those people. And then you're going to have a massive business, right? And Gary always says, we can be anywhere we want to be within 5 years. We spend 1 year working really, really hard to build our database up. And then we spend the next 4 years making sure we're feeding that and that we're really growing that and that we are following up with that. And then that is going to bring the results that we want. Okay. Any questions so far? I know I've been talking a little bit. Okay, so here's a way to expand some of your METS database as far as that goes, or your unmets. So if you want to basically reach out and meet new people, right? And here's ways that you can really expand your METS. Phone calls and visits with past clients. So they can lead you on to people that you don't know that you should know. Going to your schools, churches, neighbors, sports, hobbies, communities. Those are all people that you can reach out to that can give you the names of people. Open houses is a great way to build your MET database, because what that's going to do is it's going to bring a bunch of unmets for you. And then when you meet them at the open house, now they become METs, right? Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Geographic or niche farms. So I want to go out there and say, hey, listen, my neighborhood, I live in a neighborhood called Poppyfield Estates. I want to go and door knock that neighborhood consistently, maybe for a year, just so that I can go out there, meet my people, get face-to-face with them. Now they know me, and now I know them. Now when I send them marketing materials, it's not going to be from some strange person, and I'm going to really, make sure that everybody in my neighborhood knows who I am. I can contact for sale by owners and meet with them, right? I can contact expireds and I can meet with them. And then I can start building agent to agent referrals. So I'm going to maybe make it a point of part of your daily 10-4. Man, darn it, I don't know who to call today. Well, you know what? I'm going to build a referral relationship with people in Fort Lauderdale, Florida today. I'm going to call, 5 agents in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I'm going to, add 2 or 3 of those to my database to make sure that I have a good referral partner there. And I'll tell you what, even if you didn't call any consumer, if I was to add 10 real estate agents to my database every day and call 10 real estate agents every day, and if I did that for a year and I follow it up with them, letting them know I was their guy in San Jose or Santa Cruz, I would bet you that probably in 4 or 5 years, you would have more business than you can handle just from referrals, right? So that's another way that you can approach that. And then you can, expand your unmets with internet leads and then convert or start meeting those people so that you can get in front of them. Some other things that you want to do once you get their information and you get them on the line, and we're on page 23 now, is you got to get enough information from them so that you can best service those people, right? So you need to know what their name is. That's kind of a no-brainer. right? We want to know what their home address is, especially inside of Command now, because we can create those neighborhood snapshots, and knowing what their neighborhood is going to be really important in being able to really curate an experience for them, because traditional real estate marketing has always really been about kind of the one-to-many marketing approach. Hey, I got a new listing. I'm going to send 3,000 postcards out, and then I hope I get maybe 3 or 4 leads out of that I can close a transaction. I consider that a win. What you don't really think about is the fact that 95% of those people just throw your postcard in the garbage, right? Or, hey, I'm going to send out my monthly newsletter, and in this month, I'm going to talk to you about growing tomatoes, right? And then 98% of your database doesn't have a garden and has no interest in having a garden, right? What we're doing with this, with the neighborhood snaps inside of Command right now, is we have the ability to create a neighborhood snapshot that goes out to our consumers. We can set that up to go out every 2 weeks, and it's going to give them information on the specific neighborhoods that they're interested in and that have value to them. So it's a lot more highly engaging, and it's a lot more sticky, and they're going to be more likely to respond to that and open that. So we want to make sure that we get their home address. We want to make sure we get their phone number. We get their email address so that we can contact them, right? And then, you know, all the other stuff's good too. Some things that aren't on here that would be good information to get, make sure you're getting their birthdays. If they're past clients, write down what their home anniversary is, what their spouse is, right? A lot of people love their dogs, right? If they have a dog, write down that they have a dog and what their dog's name is. Anything you think is going to be important to know about a consumer, you want to get that. But these are kind of the main core things, or at least the top 4 are for sure. Because a lot of people don't even have business cards anymore. Any questions on that? One of the things to do on the business cards, and this is in your guide, is that if you're meeting somebody for the first time, you get their business card. Once you do that, before you go back home, just so that you don't forget, maybe on the back, write down who was with them so that you know how you met them, what day of the week it was, and then where you met them. So that way, if you have a conversation with them later, you'll have that information logged in so that you can re-jog their memory on where you guys had connected. A couple other things here. We talk about the Ford, and we're not talking about trucks here. The Ford basically kind of technique is this. We want to always know, these are the things we want to know about people or our people. We want to know about who their family is so that we can have better conversations with them about that. We want to know what their occupation is so that we can have conversations with them about that. We want to know what they do for fun, because ultimately that's going to help us build better connections with those people. We want to know what their dreams are too, because that's going to help us, you know, a lot too. If I know that Joe Smith wants to, you know, leave Santa Cruz because it's super expensive, and then maybe retire in North Carolina, because now I can move from one coast to the next coast, still get to live by the beach, but basically cut my housing cost in half, pay off the other place cash, and then have a big sizable chunk of money that's still in the bank. I want to know what those dreams are so that I can best help provide guidance for him to get to that point, right? And there's just some items here that are below that tell you how you can get additional information to build relationships quicker, right? Is this a buyer or is a seller? How urgent are they in potentially moving if it's somebody that wants to move right away? What their family members' names are. What kind of personality do they have? Because ultimately, if I'm a big talker and somebody's not a big talker, how do I communicate with that person better, right? What their birthdays is, what their hobbies, interests are, and what their kids' names, what their pets' names are, things like that. Oops, went too fast. So here's a quick little exercise, is buyer and seller data. Break into small groups of 4 to 6 people. So I'm gonna actually break you out into a quick breakout real quick. And then I'm going to assign you a buyer or seller group. And then what I want you guys to do is this checklist on basically on the next page here. And this is in your handouts on page 25. It's going to tell you contact information and property information. So it says, use the checklist on the following page, discuss how you might use this information. So if I was getting contact information, so there's a big list of contact information that I could use. And then there's a big list of property information. Knowing that info, what I want you guys to talk about for about 5 minutes is how would I basically take that information? How would I use that information? And then we'll come back and talk about how we would use some contact information and some property information. So I'm going to just break you out for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll talk for about 5 minutes or so. So let me stop the screen share here. Hopefully everybody has the guide so that they can use that list, okay? And then we're going to just break you up into 2 groups. One group will be the buyer group, one group will be the seller group. And so let me set the breakout room. We're going to hit create 2 rooms. And then we're going to rename the group buyers. And room 2, we're going to rename that group to sellers, or I'm going to try to rename that group to sellers. Here we go, sellers. So if you end up in the buyers group, talk about what you would use that information for buyers. If you're in the sellers group, what you would use that information for sellers. And then I'll break you out for about 5.
we're out of the box.
We got booted out.
Got booted out. So I hate to break up the discussions, but since we got started just a little bit later, we need to kind of speed through some of this stuff just a little bit because I want to make sure that you guys get out of here on time and that I got to get out of here on time today too. And if there's anything we don't get to since they were having Zoom troubles earlier, I'm happy to hop on and we can do another call to finish up some of the stuff if there's anything we don't get to as well. But what were some of the things, if we go and we look at that list, and let's just go with the buyer group really quick. What could we use some of the contact information for that we might not think about? And what could we use some of the property information for to assist us in building better relationships with buyers? What do you guys come up with?
As far as like, can you clarify the contact information?
So like, for example, if I know a spouse's job title, how might I use that or work that to my advantage to build a better relationship with a particular client?
Well, you could, by providing, value related information to something that they do, right? In relation to maybe where they want to be.
Right, because hey, listen, a good example of that, I think you just kind of alluded to that is, oh, my wife's a doctor. Well, where's she work, right? Well, if you know where she works, and if you know that their goal at some point is to get closer to her work, then that obviously is going to be an important piece of information to know. So I think the point of the exercise was to just kind of get you guys to look at both buyer and sellers. What's some information that you might not necessarily think of that might be important to know, and how that information could have an impact on being able to make better connections for them. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then kind of the same thing too with the other one, it was property information, knowing numbers and bedrooms of sizes that they're currently in and what they'd like to potentially be in. And just knowing that information. Hey, I know that Tom said that he wanted a 5-bedroom place and hasn't been able to find any 5-bedroom places. This one just popped up. Now I know that I need to go and have a conversation with Tom because this could, potentially get him to want to move, right?
Yeah. Well, and you can also use it to drill down. Why do you want the 5-bedroom? And it may not necessarily be about actually 5 bedrooms, right?
Right.
You find out that it's more of a concept, and if you can provide something similar to that maybe doesn't have 5 bedrooms that meets the needs.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Because ultimately, why do you want to have that 5-bedroom, Tom? Well, I want to have an office. Well, what happens if we found a place that had an office with 4 bedrooms? Would that work? Yeah, that would work too. Right. So it's just getting, the more information we have, the better off we're going to be. All right, so I'm going to hop back into the slides here real quick. So the next one was what to feed your database. Again, adding contacts to the database, when to enter contacts in, updating contact info and contact history. So we want to make sure that we have all that information in for our people so that we can, be able to have better communications with those people as well. Okay. And again, it's important to make sure that you update the contact information as soon as anything changes. That way you have an immediate record of that and you're up to date with what they're doing. Same thing with the conversations. When we have a conversation with people, we're going to want to make sure that we update those conversations as well. So communicating with it in a systematic way, I think this is where Command really comes into play. So put your database to work. One habit, the beginning of the 3 hours. So we talk about lead generation for 3 hours. I know that's one of the things that Renee has been talking about with you guys. And so if we're lead generating for 3 hours, these are the things that we want to do to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success. At the beginning of the 3 hours, we want to create a habit. Okay. Identify and prioritize what I want to do with lead generation today. What am I trying to accomplish? Okay. Am I prioritizing appointments? Am I prioritizing just getting phone calls out there? Am I prioritizing writing letters or postcards? What's my priority today? And I want to make sure that I really focus in on that because that's going to help us maintain focus. And then at the end of the 3 hours, we want to update our database with everything that we've got. So I learned all this stuff today. Now I'm going to take this information from these calls and I'm going to make sure my database is updated to reflect all the information I found out. Right. So just again, it's 3 hours every workday. We're going to lead gen. We're going to basically pick and prioritize what we want to accomplish today. And then at the end, we're going to make sure we put any updates that we need to the people that we brought in there.
And typically, like, how long at the front end? Like half an hour on each end, or 15 minutes? Like, what are
I think it just depends on you. I could sit there really quickly and just say, okay, hey, listen, today I want to make sure that today it's all about appointments. So everybody I call today, I'm going to really strive and structure to try to get an appointment from them.
Mhm.
And then maybe the next day it could be, hey, I just need to like go through a lot of massive stuff. I want to just try to slam in as many leads as possible. So today it's going to be all about making phone calls. I'm not going to necessarily press super hard for appointments or anything like that. But today I want to make 100 phone calls today because I got to get a deal and I got to get it quick. So I'm going to just talk to everybody as fast as I can and find out who's ready to do business, because I'm going to not eat next month if I don't get a transaction going.
Right.
Okay. So like I said, it could be a half an hour, or you could just, it could be as quick as 2 minutes. Hey, what needs to happen today in my world? So here's some systematic marketing plans. We've changed this actually a little bit. So I'm going to kind of skip over this just a little bit. The 8x8 is still relevant. This is basically, I'm going to, this is at the start of a relationship to let people know that I am a real estate agent. Then they kind of convert to a 36 touch, not a 33 touch. 12 direct is basically somebody's not responding to me. I put them onto an 8x8. They haven't responded after 8 weeks, or this lead hasn't responded after 8 weeks. I'm going to put them and send them on something monthly until they respond to me in one way or the other. Right?
John, when you are making the calls and you are continually making, do you take notes by hand? Do you continue in the computer? How do you keep track of what is happening?
I used to take calls I used to write notes by hand, but now with technology, it's a lot easier for me to make a call and then just write the information in a note inside a command as I'm having a conversation with them.
Okay.
That's what I do.
Okay.
Okay, so some overviews of systematic marketing plans. On basically this one's, there's a couple types of systematic marketing action plans. There's they haven't met, we got the 12 direct, and we just talked about that. It's going to be some sort of direct mail, and it doesn't necessarily even need to be direct mail anymore. It could just be, hey, I'm going to put you on a monthly neighborhood nurture. I met you, I put you onto an 8x8, you haven't responded to me. I'm going to put you on a monthly neighborhood nurture, and you're going to get this email from me once a month on the neighborhoods that you said that you were interested in, right? A met, I'm going to put on an 8x8, right? Cements the relationship, and then after that, it's a 36 touch. And then, like I said, the 36 touch, could be a couple different things. You're going to go a lot more into the 36 touch and the 8x8 in the next couple classes that you do. So I'm not going to hit on it too much here. Okay. But one of the things I really like on page 31, it says truth. All three have a common theme: overkill over time. Because no matter how much you think that you're following up with people and it's too much, most agents fall way short of what they should be doing. So overkill, overdo it. Because you're going to tend to underdo it anyway. So some benefits of some systemization, right? And again, this goes to page 31 in our system here, and it talks again about that. We have that common theme, and then if we get into the next page, it talks about again some benefits. It makes me consistent, right? We have predefined. Predefined means that we have scripts, letters, notes, mailing pieces that I'm going to use pre-made, smart plans that we can use pre-made. These things are repeatable and that we can make it automatic. So if we have 2,000 people to leverage in our database, it's going to be pretty tough if we're not using systems. So, and again, I'd really go through and look at that page, which is 32 in your book, and say, how can I be consistent? How can I create pieces that I don't have to create from scratch every time? How can I automate those things so that it continues to happen? And I think really the answer is command again, right? And then the marketing materials we use, we have a ton of smart plans, marketing assets that you can utilize inside of command as well. for both of those things. So the basic 8x8, we're just going to kind of tell you a little bit about that. And there's an 8x8 smart plan that's in Command, so you don't have to recreate from scratch. It's basically the entry point, and you start it immediately when you put somebody into the database. And it could be a combination of a bunch of different things. It could be a personal visit, although that's hard in our environment today. Could be phone calls. Could be I send you or mail you an item of value. Could be a handwritten note. Lots of different things that you can do with that. To get that initial cementing the relationship. I meet you for the first time once a week for 8 straight weeks. You hear from me in one of those 4 formats, and I'm going to make sure that at the end of the 8 weeks, you know that I'm a real estate agent and that I want to help you, right? And here's some suggestion items of value. I'm not going to read through each one of these things. But basically, it goes through and it tells you some different things that you could be doing. Also on page 33 of the guide, if you look at that, it's going to tell you some examples of what you could do for each of the 8 weeks, which is really great. This lists, like I said, some items of value if you wanted to drop something or mail something off to them that you could utilize. And if we want to customize an 8x8, you can use this checklist here to basically go in and say, hey, what do I want to really do over the 8 weeks to send to my people? 33 touch. Again, this is old. We call it a 36 touch now, and we're on page 36. This is just a systematic marketing and prospecting technique that ensures year-round contact with all the prospects that you meet, and basically it nurtures your relationship with these people. So this is not necessarily just for leads. If I've known you for the last 20 years and you just bought a house yesterday from me, I'm going to put you on a 36 touch, and in that 36 touch, you're going to get a combination of mailings, postcards, phone calls, emails, visits. So that I maintain that emotional proximity with you, so that you use me whenever you want to do real estate, and that you refer me whenever you have to somebody to refer out. Okay, so some examples of this are on your in your handout on page 36. It's going to give you 33 possible touches, which you can add a few there. It's going to give you some descriptions of what those things might look like and how you can maintain systematic communication with your people. And this kind of gives you an idea of what you can also do. One of the things I like to do is in Command, you can set up a 36 touch in Command, right? So if I wanted to commandify this, I could put somebody on a biweekly neighborhood nurture. That means that an email is going to go out every 2 weeks. So that'll be 26 touches just from that email, right? I'm going to put you on a quarterly call plan. So I'm going to call you 4 times a year. So that's 30 touches. And then I'm going to put you on a birthday plan, which is going to remind me to send you a birthday card. It's going to remind me to call you on your birthday. It's going to remind me to post to your social media that it's your birthday. And then it's going to remind me to text you, or it's going to actually automate sending a text message out to you on your birthday. So that gives me another 4 touches right there. And then if you're a past client, I can put you on a home anniversary plan, which is going to remind me to send you a card or a gift every year for your home anniversary and to call you on your home anniversary. So that's 2 touches. So that could be 36 touches that you can automate right inside of Command, which is really, really great. So a couple of other ones here. Succeeding through a 33 touch, be consistent. Make sure that you're personal and you're customizing the message a little bit, and that you're long-term, so that you're going to do this consistently, and you're not going to do it, you're not going to do 3 things 1 month and nothing the next month, and then, or the next 2 months, and then 6 things the next month. Consistently do 33 touches every month forever, right? And then that is what's going to start getting you the results that you want, which is why I always say real estate's easy, but it's hard. We are giving you a blueprint of what it's going to take to get your business to be as big as you want it to be. Key is you just got to be consistent in doing it. And that's where it's hard. We're showing you what to do. And it's not really hard things to do. It's hard being consistent in doing those things. 12 Direct program, again, that's just a series of things that I'm going to send out to people once a month that aren't really connected to me. I know who they are. I got their contact information, but they're not they're not following up with me, or they're not having information to me. So I'm going to just send them something once a month to maintain a relationship, and hopefully I'll get them looped in at some point here. And so that's what a 12 Direct establishes your presence. And then it helps brand you versus basically, just spamming somebody, if that makes sense. And then Gary in the Box, systemizing your database. It says view the Gary in the Box KW Connect video. So there's a video in there that basically, it's talking about this technology trap. It says when technology is intended for convenience, it actually ties us down and steals our time. So basically what this is getting at is we don't want to let the technology be an excuse for us not to work with our database. Meaning that we want to make sure we have our database, we want to use the technology to leverage it, but we don't want to spend so much time in the tech that we're not actually talking to our people, right? So the quote at the bottom here is ready, aim, fire, right? So don't fiddle around in your database. Don't make cleaning up your database an excuse for not actually making the personal touches. So it says ready, aim is better than ready, aim, 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 aim. And what that basically means is you want to ready, fire, aim. So I want to fire before I actually aim, because firing is going to be action. Aiming is not going to be action. It's kind of preparation. And I want to make sure that I'm taking action. And some action, even if it's wrong, is better than no action. Okay. So the exercise, we're going to kind of skip over the exercise, although I want you to do it. And so I'm going to set up the exercise. I want you to do it, but like I said, for the sake of time, since we started late, and I got another call I got to be on. I know some of you guys didn't plan to go over 3. And this session is just a little bit longer than what they had planned for anyway. So I'm going to set up the exercise. I'm going to tell you that I want you to do it, and then I want to make sure that you go out and that you do it, and so that you can still get the experience of doing this. So it says, how much time does it really take to manage your database, right? And what I want you to think about here is when you, and again, you don't need to do necessarily this exercise the way it's written, because it talks about using index cards, and nobody uses index cards anymore, right? So what I want you guys, the directions are break into small groups of 4 to 6 people, cut along the dotted lines of the 2 following pages to create 12 separate index cards. You only need 1 set of cards per group. Choose a member of your group who has secondhand watch to be their timekeeper, and it says follow the instructors, they tell you how to work your new database. What I want you to do with this instead of following that is I just want you to think about how much time it is, and what you can do for this activity. Time yourself tomorrow, okay, or one day next week. How much time am I spending working in my database? Not making phone calls, but just working my database. And then when you calculate that time out, let's say it's 2 hours. Where am I wasting time in my database that I could be leveraging the technology a little bit more to eliminate that? And here's what I'm telling you, because I've had a lot of conversations over the last week with people about this, is let's just say, for example, in Command right now, right? One of the things that you can do in Command right now is you can automate client updates when a task has been completed. And I'm not going to go into Command because this is not a Command session, but here's what I'm getting at with that. If I can automate an update rather than having to spend 5 minutes to call a client to update them on, hey, the roof inspection's been ordered. If I can eliminate 5 updates a day and leverage Command to automate that for me, I eliminate 5 5-minute phone calls. That's 25 minutes, or let's just say 30 minutes. And then if I find that, hey, I'm entering information in from one place to the next place to the next place because I'm not really using Command and I'm doing double data entry in a couple different spots, maybe that's an extra half an hour that I'm wasting that I could be using Command for. So now that's an hour a day. Now I want you to consider this. Think about this. An hour a day might not seem like a big deal, but an hour a day turns into 5 hours a week. 5 hours a week turns into 20 hours a month. 20 hours a month turns into 240 hours in a year. Now consider this. We have an 8-hour workday. 240 divided by 8 is 30. If you saved an hour a day because you were leveraging your database the way that it should be, and you were using command and the technology that it could be, what would it look like if you gave yourself 30 work days extra versus what you have now? You've given yourself an extra month that you previously didn't have. So that's what I want you to do with this exercise, is because, like I said, since we don't really use index cards anymore, I just want you tomorrow or one day next week to time yourself on how much time you're spending in your database, that you can utilize the tools and the technology to leverage, and then make a commitment to say, I want to learn how to use these things in command to eliminate this time so that I can get some of that time back. Does that make sense? Any questions on the activity, on what I want you guys to do? Great, I take silence as a no. So let's get through the rest of the slides here real quick. So the database duties of an agent, we have daily duties, we have weekly duties, we have monthly duties, and we have yearly duties, right? And this is page 45 of the guide, right? And let me scroll down through the guide here real quick so that we can follow along. So some daily duties that you guys have, they're listed in there. So just really quick, managing new leads, I'm going to do on a daily basis, keeping appointments, making calls, writing notes, sending and receiving emails. Those are some things that I do daily. Weekly, I'm sending things like letters, postcards, mailers, right? Some monthly things that I'm doing, I'm sending monthly mailers, emails, and I'm maintaining contact records. And then yearly duties, some examples there are sending seasonal mailers, updating contact records, reviewing effectiveness of lead sources that I have, and developing my business plan. So I think this page is a really good page to see, hey, what kinds of things should I be doing in my database, daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly as well too. So that's page 45. So I would highlight that page.
John, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
What's the name of this course? I'm looking, trying to find which one is this course.
It's down at the bottom. It's down at the bottom. It's Power Session 4, Leveraging a Powerful Contact Database. And what I would do is just reach out to Renee Nori, and Renee can get you a copy of the guide if you need a copy of the guide.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm not going to really go over Microsoft Outlook because, again, this is where part of some of the stuff is dated. So you could use Microsoft Outlook to maintain contact with your people, but it's not going to be very efficient. Again, utilize command to make sure that you're handling emails, your calendar events, your contact information, and that you have your history of the stuff in there. You have your smart plans connected inside of there as well too, right? And it says, hey, it's time to use a contact management system. What is a contact management system? Your CMS programs, it's command, right? So again, I don't think I really need to go over this quite so much. Again, command allows you to get all your contact records in there. It allows you to get the information you need on those people. It allows you to set those people up on tasks. It allows you to put them on drip campaigns and manage the transactions that they're working on and make notes about your people. And that's what it should be doing, so that you can quickly and easily find the people and where you left off with them and what you need to be able to be doing with those people. Okay. Says it's time to use a contact management system. Myth, I don't have enough leads to bother with a contact management system. And the truth is most agents in the growth phase of their career are managing 20 to 80 leads at a time. With 20, it's difficult to keep up, let alone 80. So a CMS or command is going to help you schedule, complete tasks, do your lead generation activities that it would really be impossible to kind of keep up with in your own head. Some benefits of eEdge. Again, this is one of the old things, so I'm not going to really go over this. We'll just say benefits of command. You got smart plans, you can create marketing assets, you can create task reminders, you got contact information, you have contact history in their timeline, you can set up appointments through command, you can email them through command, you can lead source them and track the lead sources, you got reports, you got the opportunities, which is going to allow you to do transaction management. That's all stuff that you're going to be able, that you can do in command right now. Okay. Keys to CMS success: use it. So don't just say, hey, I got this tool, and then not use it, because if you're not using it, it's not going to be really useful for you if you're not using it. Take baby steps. This is an important one that I like to talk about a lot, is that, you know, when, say for example, we get our first cell phone, right? You get your first cell phone or your first smartphone. You didn't know how to utilize every app on your phone the first time you got it. Or at least I didn't, especially the ones that didn't have buttons on it, right? You just had to figure out how to turn it on. And then you learn how to make a phone call because it's a phone. And then you learn how to, you know, text message, and you learn how to email. And then you slowly start to utilize the rest of the stuff. Command's not any different, right? Is I'm going to learn the core things. I'm going to learn I'm going to learn the contact part of it. I'm going to learn how to utilize opportunities, and I'm going to learn how to set up the account and navigate through the account. Then I'm going to slowly start to learn the rest of the stuff, but I'm going to break it down into basics first and then layer things on top of that. So you don't need to learn how to, you don't need to master Command all at once. You just need to start using it, right? And then the last step says listen to it. When it's telling you to do stuff, when it's saying, hey, you got these tasks to do today, do them. Don't just ignore it, right? It says, don't touch that delete key. It says, hey, what about unresponsive contacts? If they're not responding, don't delete them, right? Because ultimately, we want them to eventually do business with us or hope to do business with us. So we want to make sure that we're still following up with those people. So if you're not communicating with me and I think that you're a dead lead rather than getting rid of you, I'm just going to put you on a monthly smart plan. And each month you're going to get something you're going to get a monthly neighborhood nurture from me. And who knows, maybe 2 years from now, after never hearing from you, you finally decide that you want to sell your house. And you say, hey, John, and I've had this happen to me before. I'm going to list with you because you do a great job of diligently following up with me over the last couple of years. And I really like that kind of consistent or the persistence. Okay. So put them on a 12 direct or a 12-month plan, and then put them on an email only plan. I'm not going to waste my time calling you if you're not responding to me. So I'm not going to put you on a quarterly call plan. I'll just put you on a plan to email you. And that way I'm maintaining some sort of relationship with you if you're completely unresponsive to me. Okay. Opting out. If somebody wants to opt out of Command, it automatically opts you out for them directly. So that's a benefit of using Command. You don't have to worry about sending them more emails or text messages if they opt out. Always be courteous. If somebody opts out for me though, I do try to make a phone call to them just to find out, hey, why are you opting out? Are you not interested anymore? Was I sending you too much information? If I was sending you too much information, would you like me to still send you stuff from time to time, just not as frequently? That allows me to potentially preserve keeping them in my database as well too. If they say, no, I'm just not interested, I'm done, just let them go, right? Service all the leads that come your way. So we're wrapping it up here. So a couple things, get on the fast track, make sure that you're funneling your people, which means that they all get into Command, right? When they do get into Command, make sure that you assign them to smart plans and so that you can appropriately service them. And then the source, you always want to track your lead sources so that you can calculate your return on investment. So if I say, hey, this is a Facebook lead, this is how much money I'm spending on Facebook, I need to be able to then get, I can either scale up and spend more on Facebook if it's working. If it's not working, then I can say, hey, I need to scale back, right? And then you want to track the results. So it's funnel, assign, source, track. So fast. We want to make sure that we get all of our contacts in one spot. We get them on the appropriate smart plans or in front of the appropriate team members. We get the lead source in there. And then we get them basically, and then we start tracking the business. So, and again, we talked about this a little bit. Lead generation sources about funneling leads. Lead gen sources bringing in the leads. Lead gen sources that convert to business. So we want to make sure that we're tracking that information. We want to make sure that we track whether or not the leads are being followed up on. We want to make sure we're tracking our conversion rates. And all this is on page 54. And we want to make sure that we reward referral sources for giving us their business. And then finally, some unity in marketing as far as that goes. So you got signs, flyers, ads, direct mail pieces, promotional items. Everything that we do here should then funnel them to our app, to our websites, things like that, so that we get them all into Command, right? So make sure that you have all that information there. A couple other things. phones, email, websites. Don't worry about IVRs as much. That's not so much as a thing anymore. But phones, it says anytime a lead comes into your business, it should be entered into your database again. And you want to make sure that you're logging those phone calls. Command logs your emails, so that's good. And then anything that comes from your website should, if you're using command sites, should funnel back into command. If you're not using a command website, you need to find out a source or a way to get that information into command. And if you're using a different CRM other than command, whatever information comes in from those places should funnel back into one spot.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
That's a quick question.
Sure.
Since you brought up the tracking the emails. One thing I've noticed that with command, when you look on somebody's timeline and the emails that are going out, when you click on them, it just gets me to log into my Google account, and I don't know what it is. I can't see what the email was. Am I doing something wrong, or is that the way it is?
Yeah, there's been some slow bugs being worked out with that. So it's just going to tell you that an email came in, and what you then now have to really kind of do is that if I have, typically the way I work the business is that if I go in to command, I'll also typically have my Gmail account open. I go into a contact record, I can see a date that the email came in, and then I just go into Gmail real quick and I search through the Gmail for that client's name and the date so that I can see what that was, what had been sent in.
Okay.
Looks like we had a chat question pop up. Okay, awesome. And so thanks, Viviana. I appreciate the comments there. And then we'll just get through the last couple parts here because like I said, I don't want to go too long over, but I know that we started a little bit late. So assigning some leads, this is making sure that you're getting the people that are new leads that are coming in are grouped into your database. So we're tagging them and we're sorting them and putting lead sources in so we can track. We want to make sure that the new leads get to the appropriate smart plans or marketing plans that we do, and that we get those people to the team members that they belong to if we're running a team, okay? Second thing we want to make sure that we're doing is we're assigning people as far as, in a geographical type. So if we're saying, hey, listen, we got a certain person that works a particular farm, we want to make sure that we're getting those to the right people. If it is a name of a team member, we want to make sure that they're getting to the right person, co-op agent, all those things. We want to make sure that we're going through these things and making sure that our people are going into the right spots and that they're being tagged the appropriate way. So that we know who's supposed to be responsible for those people, where the lead sources came from, so that we're tracking our business. And the same thing for sourcing leads. We want to find out what our sources are because we want to find out later on what works and what hasn't been working. And then that way we can do more of what's working, and then we can either eliminate or reconfigure the things that haven't been working. And then we want to track. We want to make sure that we got lead follow-up. We want to make sure that we are following up with the lead sources so that we know, again, what's working. And then we want to see what my ratio of leads to closed business is. So I know, hey, for this lead source, so for Facebook leads, right, am I following up with these people? How many leads am I getting from this? And then what amount of business did I close from this? That way I can calculate at the end of the year, has this been a good investment for me? And should I continue with this or should I not continue with this? Okay. A question got asked, how do I label leads by, a certain item? You just go into command and then you create a custom tag. And so you create a custom tag and then you can have that inside of your database, and then you can create any sort of custom tag that you want to. Some final thoughts. We went over this today. Build your database and build it through command. Make sure you're adding to those people every single day. Communicate with that systematically, utilizing things like smart plans so that you're hitting those people 36 times in a year. And then make sure that you do a good job at servicing the people that do come your way, because you don't want to do all that work, get an opportunity for the business, and then not be able to close the business, because then that would defeat defeat that, right? And putting it all together, right? What are some ahas that you guys had from the session that maybe you didn't have or that you didn't think about prior to coming in here? And then how might you change your lead generation action plan. So what are some things that we might have learned today here? And hopefully there was a couple things that you guys learned.
Yeah, I got some benefit out of going over the touches, like the 8x8 and the 36 touch. And I think that for us, restructuring, because we have brevity as well, and we have some auto plans in there, but really getting in and dialing in some of these, like being more purposeful about the 8x8 and then moving them to the 36 touch and the other people that are on there, the long-term nurturers, and also the 12 direct, because I've just been, letting people go, but that's a good point of, just keep them in there, but, just send them something.
Yeah, send them something, because you never know when sometimes just people just don't respond for one reason or other. And I think that's where a lot of the big opportunities are missed from our top agents is our top agents lead generate in their sleep. So they don't have any shortage of leads, and they close a lot of deals because of that. But then there's a lot of deals that they don't close that they could have because they're not following up with those people. And then that Command through Smart Plans can allow us to systematize some of that follow-up with people that we might have dropped, right? And give us a little bit more business.
Right.
Okay.
I like the integration. I really like the integration between your captured leads and the emails and the other contacts that are going on, the fact that the tracking systems for some accountability.
Absolutely.
I like the integration a lot because it absolutely almost guarantees you to be successful if you just do the thing it's asking.
Yeah, 100%. So for some homework, you guys need to start thinking about your new lead generation plan and how you're going to lead gen to get more business and build that in there. And then what I really kind of want to leave you with is just this, the 3-hour habit. This is kind of like the big thing in the bread and butter of everything. We don't time block enough, and we let a lot of things get in the way of doing our lead generation every day. So we want to make sure that we're time blocking 3 hours every day. Try to get it done before noon so that you got the rest of the day to work on whatever you need to work on. And if you don't get that lead gen in, if you plan on getting these things done before noon, if you have to come back to lead gen, you got a lot of time in the day. No skipping. We talked about this already. If you have to erase lead generation, you can't erase it. You got to replace it. So if it doesn't happen in the first 3 hours, it's got to happen sometime. And then again, allow no interruptions, because what typically happens, and I know this happens with me, and it's not just lead generation, it's everything. I go in, I get in a groove, and I do really well. If stuff constantly is knocking me out of that groove, it's hard to get back into sync, and it's hard to get back into the motivation to do that. So make sure that you're in an environment that is going to give you and not being not interrupted, so that you're more consistent with that as well too. And then that is really it. You guys have your guides. I know one question that came in said, hey, listen, how do I customize, say, by, a tag by certain, ethnicities and things like that for different holidays? It's really simple. I'll show you that real quick, and then I got to pop off. If I go into Command here real fast, I'll show you how that looks. So if I go into Command here real quick, and I wanted to create a tag, I can go into my name, I can go into settings. Under settings, I can go into command settings, I can go into contacts, I can go into contact tags, and I can say, create a new tag, and then I could put in, I don't even know how to spell Hanukkah, but I could put Hanukkah card, or I could put Christmas. And then I could tag it by color if I wanted to, hit create. And then anybody that I tagged for Christmas card or Hanukkah card or whatever, I can apply that tag to them. Then that way I know that anybody that got that card applied to them, I can go into contacts, I can go into filters. And then once I go into filters, I can go to tags and I can type in Christmas. I can click that, and then anybody that I've applied that tag to will show up in that list, and then that's my list of people that I want to send a Christmas card to, or a Hanukkah card to, or whatever other religious holiday or ethnic holiday that you might want to apply there. Okay. Which again, we've come a long way. That would be really hard to do with a index cards, finding all those people who were classified as Hanukkah, right? But in Command and in a good CRM, we have the ability to do that. Okay. All right, so that's it. If you guys have any questions about any of the content that we went over today, feel free to email me. My email address, I'll put into the chat box here real quick. johnmorris@kw.com. Appreciate you guys all. And if you have any questions, well, actually, before we head out, any questions that we went over on anything today that you have right now?
No.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you guys. Thank you for sticking around, and thanks for especially sticking around for the late start date or start time. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Thanks, Ed. It was a nice class.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.